Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you a tutorial for these really cute and easy crochet sleeves, or a shrug, bolero, whatever you want to call it. And we're just going to jump right in. So for this project, you will need most likely 2 skeins of yarn. I used these two 100% acrylic 150 gram balls, and I used about 1.5 of these, so around that much. And I am using a light yarn here, but it also works with a regular 4-weight yarn, and you just want something that's soft and comfortable. And then I'm using a 5mm hook. Again, you can change your hook size depending on your yarn, but I just found that suited the yarn I had well. And then you also need a pair of scissors, of course, and also a darning needle to weave in all your ends at the end of the project. I would say that this project is beginner to intermediate friendly. It uses the chain, double crochets and treble crochets, and it's just the same stitches over and over again. So I do think a beginner would be able to do this with a little bit of practice and potentially just watching the instructions a little bit slower. The assembly of this shrug is super easy. I think it's all using techniques and stitches that a beginner would be able to do, but feel free, if you have any questions or if anything's unclear, just let me know in the comments and I will help you out there. For this style, it is made to measure. So what we're going to do is you're going to start with your starting chain, and you want this to be an odd number. So I've made a few of these now and I'm comfortable with this yarn, so I know that I'm pretty happy with a chain of 69 across, and this will be the width of your front and back panels. So I measured from shoulder to shoulder, and I do like this style when it's got a slightly wider, not quite a drop shoulder, but it is wider across the top. Once you've held it up to yourself and you're happy with the width, then you're just going to chain 1, and that's just going to give us the room to do our starting stitch. Again, this stitch I'm about to do might not be familiar to every beginner, but it's super easy to do if you just watch what I am doing here. What we're going to do is go into the second chain from the hook, and we're going to go in and do a single crochet as normal, and then we're going to go into the front post of that single crochet, and then we're going to single crochet into that. That's going to make our first double crochet for the row, and that will be our first stitch. And then the pattern we're going to follow for this entire project is just going to be 1 stitch, chain 1, and then stitch into the second hole. So we're going to be creating a bit of a mesh stitch with gaps in between each stitch. So the whole way along, you're going to do double crochet, chain 1, then double crochet into the second next stitch. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, all the way down your foundation chain. We're not doing an initial row of single crochets or anything, we're getting straight into the mesh stitch. And because we had that odd number of stitches and then the chain 1 just to start, you should have the correct amount to end on a double crochet at the end of the row. Okay, now that you've got your whole first row done, you can see you've got these lovely little gaps. And as I said, this pattern is very simple, so we're just going to be making our front panel right now. So because we're doing double and triple crochets, we are going to now chain 3 as our turning chain, and now we're going to do the same exact thing but just with treble crochets. So we're going to do chain 3 to turn our work, turn it over, and then right into that first double crochet stitch we're going to do a treble crochet. So if you haven't done one of these before, you just need to yarn over twice. So 1, 2, then you go into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So it's similar to a double crochet but just with 1 extra step. And then we're going to do that same exact thing the whole way across. We want the mesh to be consistent, so every time you enter a stitch it's going to be into a post stitch, if that makes sense, rather than into the gap. So you just want to continue that all the way down, and then that will be row 2. Now that we've got our row 2, we're going to go into row 3. And so the pattern that we will be following for the sleeves and for the front and the back panels is going to be a row of double crochets, a row of treble, 2 row of double, and a row of treble. So double, treble, double, double, treble, double, treble, double, double, treble, over and over again. You can obviously change this. You can just do doubles, you can just do trebles. You can really experiment with however you want to do these rows. I just landed on this variation and I thought it looked cute with this variegated yarn, so that's what I've gone with. But again, this whole thing is made to measure, so you can do whatever you want. It's just the general principle of the shape that I can be showing you in this video. So I'm going to show you me crocheting for a little bit longer, and then I will meet you back once we've done quite a number of rows. So once you're starting to get quite a number of rows, this is where you want to hold it up to yourself and start to see how long you want your front and back panels to be. I'm going to measure up where I want my neckline to be, and I'm just going to add a couple more rows onto the panel on 10 stitches across, or wherever you mark that you want one side of your neck hole to be. And so we're going to make a little bit of an added section to kind of cover your shoulders and your neck. So when I held it up to myself, I saw that about 10 stitches across, so 20 if you're counting the mesh stitches as well, is where I would want my neckline edge to start. So I'm just going to continue with the pattern that we already started with the double, treble, double, double, treble, and I'm just going to do that for the 10 stitches across. So 10 of the posts, 10 of the double crochets. So you're going to turn your work into the first, chain 1, work into the second, up until you get to 10, and then you're just going to use that as if it's the end of your row, and you're going to turn your work there, and then you're going to work back a second row in whatever stitch you're up to in the pattern, so that you've now got 2 extra rows to cover across your shoulders, and I'll show you what that looks like. So as you can see here, I've got a little section on the edge that's a little bit longer than the rest of the panel, and with those 2 extra rows there, that's going to be the end of my front panel. So now what you need to do is all of that again for the back panel. We're literally just going to create the exact same piece as our back panel, and that way we can just flip it over and attach it so that we've got 1 extra section on the left, 1 extra section on the right. Then what we're going to do is sew these pieces together at the top, and this will basically create our yoke. I prefer to do what I believe is a whip stitch, which is just sewing together all from the same side. I believe it makes a really seamless join, and using those long tails that we've left from those panels, you don't have to attach any extra yarn. You can just go straight in and sew using the pieces you already have. So I'll just show you how I do that stitching together now. You can sew it together however you prefer. You can crochet it together with a slip stitch, anything like that. I just find this method is my favorite for connecting 2 panels. So you can see here now that I've got it all together in one piece with a little hole in the middle, and that's where my head and neck can go through. I'm really happy with how that's looking. You can connect less on the sides for a bit more of a wider neckline. What I'm showing you there is just where we're going to want to connect and how we're going to then be able to create the sleeves, starting from these 2 panels that we've now put together. I prefer this shrug when it's a little bit shorter in the front and back than the full width of the sleeves. So what I'm doing here is chaining 7, and again, this is all a bit of trial and error and just seeing what fits you. I'm a size small/medium, and I found these sizes with this yarn work really well, but it's all about just measuring it up to yourself and seeing what fits, and then once you've done it once, it's super quick and easy to put it together. I am now going to single crochet back so that we have 6 single crochets in a little section like this, and then this is just going to act as our little extra sleeve room so that they're nice and loose and flowy, and we're going to use that to then connect on to the panel and start creating our sleeves. And what we're going to do is just find that inside join, and we're going to single crochet into it, so you're almost adding an extra 6 stitches to the start of your row. And now what you're going to do is single crochet into each of the holes. So following our pattern, I'm doing 2 single crochets in each double crochet mesh and 3 single crochets in each treble crochet hole, and I'm just going to keep doing that as evenly as I can all the way around. It's not super important here how many you put in each section, just try to make sure it's nice and neat and even. This is just about creating an initial spot for our sleeves to work from. And so we're just going to single crochet all the way around, and I'll meet back up with you when I get to the next section. So here you can see I'm coming right up to the edge, so the opposite side of where I started. And now this is where we're going to need to connect back to our extender piece, and this is going to form the start of our sleeve. So as you can see here, I'm holding up that extension, and I'm just going to slip stitch like you would with working in the round and connect that to my piece. So now, as you can see, I've got a round circle that I can start my sleeve from. And the only other thing with this section is to make sure you end on an even total number of stitches. So we want this starting row of single crochets to be an even number. In my case, I ended up on 70 again, and what I'm going to do now is just start our pattern all over again. So we're doing the same thing we did for the front panel and the back panel, but we're just doing it in the round for the sleeves with our single crochet as our starting row. And you will notice that I've got these little extra bits and the extender piece looks a little bit precarious, but we'll fix that up later once we seam everything, so don't worry about that for now. Again, this can be a little bit of trial and error, but you just want to keep going round and round until then you come to the start of the row. And I want that even number so that I can do my final double crochet, chain 1, and then slip stitch into my first double crochet. And that just makes the mesh nice and even all the way around. So I will just show you quickly what I was saying before with that extension piece. So because I've got these 2 tail ends here, I'm just going to knot these together, and that for now, before I weave anything in, is just going to keep those pieces nice and connected. And then when we go to weave it in later, we can keep in mind to weave in our ends in a way that will support the structure of the piece. So as you can see there, it's just a little bit more straight and a better foundation. Now that I have done that single crochet and then double crochet rows, as you can see, the little extender piece just makes it a little bit longer. So just following that double, treble, double, double, treble pattern over and over again, and you're going to go all the way down until you reach a sleeve length that you like. So here you can see that I'm starting to get to a point on my arm that I'm happy with, and it's really up to your preference. You can leave it just with a double crochet or treble at the end, but I just like to do 1 row of single crochets just to give it a little bit more of a finished edge. So we're just going to do that the exact same way we did before. With all of our other stitches, you're going to chain 1 and then single crochet all the way around, slip stitch into the edge, and then cut off your yarn. And in the same way that we did with the front and the back panels, we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. The other thing to make sure when you're going about the second sleeve is just to make sure that you end up with the same number of single crochets in that first round so that our sleeves are nice and even. It should be about the same, because if you're doing 2 stitches in each double crochet space and 3 in each treble and starting with the same size extender, then you should naturally get to about the same point, but just make sure that that starting row number is the same. Alright, and now we have our sleeves. We are super close to being finished now. So all we're going to do now is weave in our ends. So as I mentioned before, you will need to be strategic with how you weave in these ends at the start of the sleeve. You may just want to reinforce those edges so that they're nice and seamless and strong. So we're just going to go in and weave in each of our ends. I like to make sure I follow the 3-step rule. So you want to weave in your yarn in 3 separate directions, and then I like to split the fibers of my yarn if it's possible. In this case I have, I think, 5 or 6 individual strands. So I just split that in half and then tie a couple knots just to make it really nice and secure, and then I cut that off. And we're just going to do that for every end all around the project. And this is another reason why using multicolored yarn is really helpful, because it's even harder to see any edges that you've weaved in because there's so much color change anyway. It's all kind of blending into each other either way. The final thing I'll say at the end here is that you can also add a single crochet row around your collar and also the bottom of the sleeves. So in this video I just single crocheted around the cuffs of both sleeves, but I didn't go around the neck or around the bottom piece of the body that comes across my chest, but you can do that. So I have made one where I did a different color border, and so I wanted to make sure I had edges on all those sections to keep it nice and neat. But in this one you do end up with quite a seamless edge anyway, so again, it's just up to your preference. And now that we've tied up all our ends, weaved them in and cut all the strands off, we have our finished piece. I hope you found this tutorial easy to follow, and again, as I said, if there's anything confusing or you have any questions, please feel free to comment them below. This is my first tutorial, so it's hard to know how easy it is for other people to understand it, so please feel free to leave your feedback. And this is what mine ended up looking like. Obviously, feel free to customize and see what works for you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!